What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Buyer by Day. Today, I want to talk about internships, specifically the stuff that actually helped me get interviews and land internships. Not the generic advice you hear everywhere, but the things that made a difference for me. So, if you're targeting a summer 2027 internship, please listen up. First, some background information before I get into my 5 tips is that the best time to apply is August through November of 2026. A lot of students don't realize how early companies recruit. By the time spring semester rolls around, a lot of these internship spots are already gone. There's usually a second recruiting cycle from January through March, but honestly, that's where things start getting stressful because you're competing for fewer positions. A lot of companies also hire on a rolling basis, which means they review candidates as applications come in. So if you apply early, you have a huge advantage over someone who applies 3 months later. By November, many internship programs have already filled most of their spots, and there's only a handful left during spring recruiting. Before we get into the tips, please make sure your resume and LinkedIn are completely up to date. Seriously. You can do all the networking and applying in the world, but if your resume has typos, you're making things way harder than it needs to be. And if you'd like me to review your resume or LinkedIn profile, drop a comment below. I'd be happy to take a look. So with that out of the way, here are the 5 things that I did that helped me land internships. Number 1, be careful applying as a grad student. This one is especially relevant if you're getting an MBA or pursuing some kind of graduate degree. During my 4th year of college, I was working on my MBA, so I was applying as a graduate student. And honestly, I could barely get interviews. A lot of business internships are built around undergraduate recruiting programs. Sometimes departments have budgets for specifically undergrad interns, and graduate student interns can fall into a different pay band. What ended up happening was I was getting automatically screened out before I ever had a chance to talk to someone. Once I changed how I positioned myself and targeted roles that aligned better with my situation, everything changed. I went from struggling to get interviews to suddenly having multiple interviews in a single week. The funny thing is, I was completely willing to accept normal undergraduate intern pay because I just wanted the experience. But after going through the process, they ended up offering me graduate level pay anyways. The lesson here is to understand how companies structure their internship programs and not accidentally put yourself into a category that limits opportunities. Number 2, connect with recruiters on LinkedIn. I've talked about this before, but I think it's one of the easiest things you can do. After submitting an application, go look for recruiters, talent acquisition specialists, or HR employees on LinkedIn and send a connection request. You're trying to become a person, not just another resume in a stack. When recruiters see your profile, they can learn more about you, your interests, and your experience. Even if they aren't connected to the exact internship you're looking for, it doesn't hurt. Best case scenario, they'll help you. Worst case scenario, you've expanded your professional network. Either way, that's a win. Number 3 is just to apply to a lot of internships. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. I applied to easily over 100 internships. The reality is that cold applying is a numbers game. One thing I was told is that if you're not applying within the first 3 days of a posting going live, your chances start dropping significantly. So I made it a routine. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'd spend at least an hour applying. Sometimes I'd be watching TV or hanging out with friends, but I kept applying consistently. I had a roommate who applied to something like 500 internships. I know it sounds crazy, but he was getting calls constantly. And eventually he landed a fantastic job and is doing extremely well today. For finding internships, LinkedIn is great, but don't stop there. Use Google, search specific locations, search specific job titles. Look directly on company career pages. And honestly, tools like ChatGPT can help you identify companies you may not have considered before. Just remember to double check postings because sometimes they can pull outdated information. Number 4, practice interviewing. This is where a lot of students fall short. They spend all their time trying to get interviews and almost no time preparing for them. If you don't know what the STAR method is, you should learn it. It's one of the best ways to answer interview questions, clearly without rambling. And here's a few stories ready to cover. Have stories ready for leadership, conflict resolution, problem solving, teamwork, taking initiative. The key is to be prepared without sounding rehearsed. Another thing I learned is figuring out what works for you personally. For me, when I get nervous, I become really quiet and reserved. And in internship interviews, they're seeing if they like you and they want to work with you. So before interviews, I dry scoop pre-workout to get myself energized and talkative so my personality actually came through. And if you're doing virtual interviews, create yourself a cheat sheet. Have it on a second screen with relevant classes, projects, questions for the interview, your upcoming coursework, key accomplishments. You don't want to read from it, but having it nearby so you can reference can be incredibly helpful. And my last step seems so obvious, but it's to research the company. You'd be surprised how many people don't do it. I've had interviewers seem genuinely surprised that I knew what their company actually did. Before every interview, learn what the company does, their industry, recent news, challenges they're facing, what the specific department is responsible for. When I was interviewing for supply chain roles, global freight costs were a huge issue. Shipping capacity was tight. Costs were increasing. Companies were trying to figure out how to manage it. Being aware of those kinds of industry challenges showed interviews that I was paying attention. You don't need to walk in and solve the problems. You're an intern. You just need to show that you're understanding the environment they're operating in. And as a bonus today, as I work in procurement, I just want to give some tips on what I do to get a procurement internship today. So since procurement's the field I'm working in, here's exactly what I'd focus on if I were starting over. First, I'd learn about how AI is impacting procurement. I'd also learn about topics like automation, digital procurement, and tokenization because those are all areas getting a lot of attention right now. Second, I'd be ready to talk about business law. Procurement touches contracts constantly. Interviewers love hearing about students who understand how business manages risk and agreement. One example I used during an interview was how I read through my entire apartment lease and noticed I could save 10% by paying up front. Since I was planning to hold the cash anyways, I paid up front and saved money. It's a simple story, but it showed that I pay attention to contracts and financial detail. Third, I'd strongly consider getting a certification. Honestly, I think the APSM through ISM is one of the best values for students interested in procurement. It immediately helps you stand out because most students don't have any procurement specific certifications. There's a cost involved, but if procurement is the career path you want, I think it's worth considering. An added benefit is that the APSM can also count towards the CPSM certification path later in your career. So if you want to be a CPSM certified in procurement, this is the first step. It does cost a couple $100 with a student discount, but it was definitely a differentiator. That's everything I've got for this video. If you're currently applying for internships, let me know where you're struggling the most. Applications, networking, interviews, resumes, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Drop your questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer every single one. And if you'd like me to review your resume or LinkedIn profile, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.